This is Dina Marie, and along our Christmas pilgrimage from the Nativity to Epiphany, we enter deep into the heart of the Holy Family, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. And out of the three, Joseph seems to be the most hidden, a quiet yet powerful father figure in the life of the Christ child and his Blessed Mother, as well as for each and every one of us in the Universal Church. So, how do we develop a greater trust in St. Joseph? Well, the answer to this question, we just need to look at one poor, humble porter who actually called himself St. Joe's little puppy. St. Joe's little puppy, Saint Andre Bessette. He's a religious brother with the Congregation of Holy Cross and became the congregation's first canonized saint, as well as the first male Canadian born saint. Well, for 40 years, Brother Andre welcomed people at the door of the College of Notre Dame in Montreal and became known as the Miracle Man of Montreal. With me today to help explore the faith of Saint Andre and his devotion to Saint Joseph is my friend Father Ron Raab of the Congregation of Holy Cross. I spent many years with Father Ron on helping produce a program for Mater Dei Radio on the margins. Also, when I met Father, he was the pastor at now Saint Andre Bessette Church in Portland, Oregon. Father Ron, thanks for joining me this morning. Merry
Oh my
Christmas
goodness.
and Happy New Year.
Yes, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. So good to see you again. It's been a
Oh,
long time.
it has. And when I looked at the calendar and I saw January 6th was the feast of St. Andre, you first came into my mind. And I thought, people need to know more about St. Andre because what they uncover is this love of St. Joseph and this trust in God and healing, the power that Jesus wants to give us in healing inside and outside. And I want to ask you first a little bit about the work that you do today, because you've been a pastor at different parishes for many years, but today you're back at Holy Cross in South Bend, Indiana.
Right. So I am the religious superior of Holy Cross House, which is a medical facility and religious house for our priests and some of our brothers here on the campus of Notre Dame. So I've been here a year and a half now, and in fact, when I was in college, I worked here as a nurse's aide. It is a very intense place, really, because many of our men who are very ill. Also, there is an incredible medical team, but I'm part of more of the pastoral side of it. I certainly don't deal with the medical world, but I do work very closely with our medical team in offering the best for our men here. So it is a very different shift from being a pastor, but it is a beautiful place to be.
Absolutely. And again, you're close to the Congregation of Holy Cross community. We have them at the University of Portland, which is really the birthplace of Mater Dei Radio. So there's such a family connection with your community,
Right,
Father. And I
right.
love that.
Yeah,
And
so yeah, the University of Notre Dame, of course, is our home base in the United States.
yeah,
Mhm.
it ties us to Saint Andre Bessette. I want to ask you as we talk about Saint Andre, how did you first come across him? I learn about him, explore his life.
Sure. When I was in the seminary, in beginning in 1974, and I was ordained in 83, it was in that time period where he was beatified. And and he was always he was a growing um, piece of what we learned along the way in those days. But the interesting thing is, especially when I got to Portland and worked with people who live outside, people with mental illness and addictions, my devotion with and to him became deeper and more profound because I learned a great deal about his life. He was a fragile man. He grew up, he was an orphan at 12. He always, his body was very frail. He needed God in many ways. And he found Saint Joseph. And through that gift of Saint Joseph, he became a healer. And so, through all those years when I was in Portland, We all relied on him a great deal at the downtown chapel. In fact, you and I have talked a lot about him through the years, but it's been many years since we have done that.
Yeah. And again, we're talking with Father Ron Raab. If you recognize that voice, 13 years on the margins was on the air here at Mater Dei Radio, and a great opportunity for us to explore really this devotion of St. Joseph's, this reaching out to people on the margins, and really the power of Christ's love in compassion, in
Mhm.
healing. And there's a great video that was done, a documentary. You were in this. There was a filming at the downtown chapel, which it was
Right,
called at the
right.
time, about God's doorkeeper, telling us the life of Saint Andre Bessette. And as I watched that again, it just made me realize, um, who would have thought that this weak, feeble, illiterate man would become a saint? But then through his life, there was recognition early on. I'm giving you a saint. I remember as he was going into Congregation of Holy Cross, this is an institution that values education and focuses their charism on
Right.
education, which Andre had none.
Exactly. Yeah, right, exactly. I mean, imagine now how in the world the community actually accepted him in the first place is
Yeah.
itself a miracle. Because we are known for education, and here this man was illiterate, and yet he was an incredibly holy man that his pastor at the time recognized and really talked the community into receiving him as a Holy Cross brother. So I think, we can learn so many things from his life and his faith. In those days too, uh, um, Canada was dedicated to Saint Joseph, and that became real. Or that dedication happened, I believe, around Andre's time or just before Andre's time. So the whole country had a devotion to Saint Joseph, and he really believed that Joseph was could could provide for people a healing, that he was a conduit to Christ's healing grace in the world. And he dedicated his life. And as an orphan, he really believed that Joseph became his father, became the one that he went to for advice and consolation and comfort. And the amazing thing, it happened. He was open to that possibility, and God's grace really allowed that to happen in him. Andre never ever took credit for the healing. He always turned to Saint Joseph and talked about Saint Joseph. And so you mentioned that he was a porter at the college. So here we are in a school, and he welcomed people. Well, what happened was word spread that he was healing people who would come, family members and students and all the rest. And so people started showing up. Well, it was so many people that they didn't know what to do with them. In the heyday of his ministry, he would see up to 600 people a day. And the community, of course, in the school didn't really know what to do with them. And they really didn't know what to do with all these people who were standing around waiting to speak with Brother Andre. So, part of his mission too, towards the end of his life, was to create a chapel there as a place where people could gather and recognize the healing gift of Saint Joseph. Well, that little chapel, just outgrew itself over and over again. And now today, of course, the Saint Joseph Oratory in Montreal is the largest shrine to Saint Joseph in the world. And unfortunately, Andre did not live long enough to see its completion, but he was instrumental in raising the money. So, it's hard to describe his simplicity of heart, his simplicity of presence, his simplicity of trust that all of these things were going to happen, and all we needed to do was to pray. Andre spent, all those hours during the day uh, encountering people and families and people who would come for him for healing. But he also spent the night praying for all those people. So he only slept an hour or two a night. And he was bound and determined that he was going to pray for every single person that came to see him and to request such a prayer and to request such healing. He believed firmly in the gift that God was allowing him to be that instrument. And, he didn't have many earthly possessions. He lived in a very small room at the school near the entrance. He didn't have much at all until he turned to the power of God.
Absolutely. We're talking with Father Ron Raab about the life of Saint Andre Bessette, whose feast day is January 6th. And so a great feast day. I love how it's right around the Epiphany. And I think maybe on that feast day, sometimes it'll fall on the Epiphany. Saint Andre certainly brings us that joy of the gift that God gives us. I want to talk more about Saint Andre and a little bit more about his love and devotion to Saint Joseph, but we are coming up to a break, Father. Stay with me and we will continue our conversation in the next half hour.